Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on this wonderful Wednesday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. And we appear to be in the September doldrums in regards to the cryptocurrency space, but the markets more broadly. And we are going to be talking about that during this video. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to be starting the video off by looking at a rather interesting clip of Donald Trump, who may become the future president of the United States, talking about solving the US debt problem with a crypto check, paying it off with Bitcoin. I found this rather interesting. Whatever your political allegiances are, there is a good chance that Trump wins the election. I think he's bullish for the overall industry. And I think the mining sector, along with Bitcoin itself, are certainly pointing towards this direction. So we're going to be starting the clip off there. Then we're going to be talking about more of the macro. The Dixie did find support. That's really been leaning, as it's sort of bounced off support, that's really been leaning on risk more broadly. Obviously, towards the back end of this week, we have non-farm payroll. There was an interesting report that came out from the Bank of America that talk about how they expect a better jobs report than expected, and also unemployment to sort of come down somewhat. And we know that this is a kind of strain on the markets. When you see that uptick in unemployment, the correlation historically is that unemployment, when you have periods of high unemployment, that's generally a sign that the economy isn't doing too well, and thus that leans on the market. So we want to find this kind of sweet spot where the Dixie continues to capitulate, inflation comes down, and ultimately, you know, this sees risk do well without entering that recession or that kind of demand destructive event. And of course, the yield curve is something to watch. So then we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. We gave that Bitcoin price prediction, and we're going to be sort of reiterating just what we think is happening with Bitcoin technically, and show you plenty of examples in regards to VanEck Semiconductor ETF. Also, Microsoft we showed previously, and then we'll talk a little bit about volatility. So, as I previously said, this is going to be a jam-packed one. And without further ado, let's dive into this clip of the potential future president talking about solving the US debt problem with crypto and Bitcoin. And I ultimately think that there is going to be a crypto element in regards to certainly a new financial system spawning, and actually problems with the old one being fixed by the cryptocurrency space. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic, and we'll get into this clip of a potential future president talking about solving the US debt crisis with Bitcoin.
Who knows, maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? We'll hand them a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion.
But how do you...
Who knows, maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? We'll hand them a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion.
So we just thought we'd play that. Rather interesting, you know, whether, again, whatever your political allegiances are, I think there's a good chance that Trump actually is going to win this coming election. And ultimately, I think he's going to be bullish for the market, certainly the crypto markets that he's pivoted rather heavily into. And of course, this is on the back end of him running for president and wanting to gain favour with what is becoming an ever-increasing community. You know, a large part or a big part of American voters, probably as single-issue voters. And I think some people will literally vote based on what they think the ramifications for the cryptocurrency market are in regards to, you know, the next president. So let's talk a little bit about the macro. The dollar did find support. The dollar is in a broader downtrend in our assessment. However, it found support recently. And of course, this has largely been leaning on risk. We're seeing Nvidia, which is the largest stock in the world, sell off somewhat. Nvidia's had a great run. Don't let the reason Nvidia's done well be the reason for you to think it's not going to do well in the future. If you understand Nvidia's role in the digital world that we're moving towards, there's every reason for you to expect them to continue to go up in value. People have been shorting this relentlessly, and it just hasn't worked to date. There will come a point in time. I don't think, however, now is it. I really think, and if you look at markets more broadly, they're generally down. You're in the September kind of doldrums. And I think this has a lot to do with that Dixie strength that we're seeing. But the Dixie is in that broader downtrend. Of course, Nvidia, again, highlights the kind of dollar strength risk asset correlation. But of course, for us predominantly, we look at Bitcoin because we think crypto is going to be the fastest performing sort of horse in this race. And if we do see that further capitulation in the dollar, that's ultimately going to allow risk assets to do well. And we think crypto is going to be the best performing risk asset. Bitcoin has been thus far and is going to continue to do so, in our opinion. So in regards to dollar strength and kind of market weakness, We do on Friday, we've got JOLTS coming out today. I think we've got ADPs tomorrow. And on Friday, we've got non-farm payroll. The first Friday of every single month, you have non-farm payroll. Now, the last one that we had was a real miss. Ultimately, we saw unemployment upticking. The fears here is the correlation between unemployment and the markets. So if we see, like the expectations are expecting, an improved non-farm number and a decrease in unemployment, that should see risk breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. And this is kind of what we're expecting. You know, there was a kind of uncertainty introduced to the markets in regards to unemployment and certainly the non-farm payroll report. If you get improving economic data, which we're getting across the board, on the back end of a weakening dollar, going into an easing cycle where the Fed is very much trying to goose the economy, if you will, that's going to see risk largely do well. We speak about this a lot, and we've got every technical reason to expect that to be the case. The Bank of America actually saying we're expecting non-farm payroll to increase by above consensus 200K in Friday's jobs report. The main driver of our forecast is the recent moderation in jobless claims after a concerning uptick earlier this summer. The unemployment rate should drop by a tenth to 4.2. We will provide more details, including a discussion of risk in a forthcoming employment preview. So that, of course, is happening on Friday. All eyes on this. We ultimately, based on global liquidity cycles, which is largely going to be, all cycles largely going to be driven by the Dixie and its kind of weakness, which we're very much predicting. But there's a lot of overlay in regards to cycles: global liquidity, election cycles, PMI cycles, European business cycles, Bitcoin 4-year cycle that all point in the same direction. I think the markets are very much positioned, but there's a kind of, nothing's ever straightforward in the markets. There's a process that you've got to go through to get there. And often there's a lot of chop and kind of volatility that comes out, certainly in regards to the cryptocurrency space. Just to pivot out before we get onto Bitcoin, this was a really interesting tweet that I found in regards to volatility. So this is from Joe Weisenthal. I believe I'm probably saying that wrong. He's highlighting here that if you bought MicroStrategy at the start of the year, you're 100% up. However, if you invested in a 3x leveraged long MicroStrategy ETF, you're down massively on the year. And this is the ramifications of leverage. Certainly more volatile assets which come with leverage. Crypto is very volatile. If you look at the risk markets generally since we've been back into them, they've done well. However, the altcoin market being the altcoin market, it's where it should be in regards to the Bitcoin 4-year cycles, but it's very much performing in a kind of leveraged manner to the stock market, if you will. And you can see the kind of ramifications of that in regards to a MicroStrategy ETF. On the topic of Bitcoin, I'm confident that we've got the path that we've set out ahead of us. It's been following it to date. I broadly think this is just a pullback in what is a broader uptrend. And if this pattern plays out, you're potentially looking at a $309,000 Bitcoin. Going back to the start of the video, could Trump have some involvement in that? Potentially. There's always going to be drivers, but technically we can see the signaling and positioning for this before it actually happens. We have previously highlighted that Bitcoin is very much just where Vanex Semiconductors were back at the end of last year. And you can see the similarities here in these two charts, and also the likes of Microsoft. You know, as a technical analyst, really what we do is we spot patterns in the charts, and we ultimately know on balanced probabilities that there's a likelihood of something playing out, and we go with what's more probable. And we think ultimately Bitcoin has a number of confluencing factors in regards to it going higher. We're still yet to see that alt season really take place, but I do believe it is coming, ladies and gentlemen. We've got September, which is typically not such a good month for the cryptocurrency space to sort of get through, and we're very much living through scary September at the moment. But on the back end of that, I really do think there's brighter days. And with crypto, you've got to be in it to win it. You've got to be able to stomach the volatility. It works to both the up and the downside, and ultimately come out victorious. And I do think if you're positioned within the cryptocurrency space today, you're not in a bad spot whatsoever. And I just want to highlight that in regards to, and we'll use total 3. So just for my own personal biases, I, of course, am more positioned in altcoins than I am Bitcoin. Could I have played as somebody who was highlighting Bitcoin's bottom at 16K, the Bitcoin dominance trade better? I absolutely could have. Lessons learned. There's no point crying over spilt milk. But when you look at the period of accumulation that we've been doing for the altcoin market, I very much think we're on the side of smart money. This is what we're looking at. We got back into the markets at the start of 2023, and this is the accumulation period that we've been going through. Obviously, this has a lot of solid and good performers baked into it. Your altcoin market still very much in that kind of phase 1 basing phase, ready for that phase 2 upside that's going to align with the dollar rolling and all the kind of macro drivers that we think are well positioned at the moment to see the prophecy that we have been telling come to fruition. So that is it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Hang in there. There's never a dull moment. We've got lots of economic data to contend with this week. Certainly non-farm payroll on Friday is going to be the big one. It's kind of a survival game, September, because when you come out of the other side of that, you're ultimately going to see, I think, really brighter days ahead. I think we've still got this 4-year cycle to sort of complete. It's not typically until after the halving. Certainly, I think it's 224 days from the prior halving and the one before that, when alt season actually kicked off. You know, that's not far away at all. So hang in there, guys. It's really a kind of waiting game at the moment for what we think to come playing out. And ultimately, at the start of the video, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that this revolution that is distributed ledgers are fundamentally going to change so much. And ultimately, you know, there's going to be massive value that's attached to that. And, you know, I know Trump, the video we looked at Trump kind of seems a bit far-fetched, but could crypto play a role in solving the debt crisis? I think from multiple angles. I think certainly if the US decides to pivot into Bitcoin or have a Bitcoin reserve that might one day become worth more, certainly if they continue to proliferate the money supply, the debt, and then they can sort of solve that problem or repay it, if you will. But also in regards to things like stable coins and things like this, you know, there's an issue, there's an illness with the current financial system that blockchain solves. There's a kind of inefficiency with systems more broadly that distributed ledgers solve as a whole. The world is ours for the taking, guys. You just got to be in it to win it. That's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always greatly appreciated. So is a comment, and I will see you all in the next one, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next.